make myself big here. How's everybody doing there? Alrighty, and welcome this morning. We're going to be reviewing Chapter 10 here. Let's say hi to everybody. Yeah. So Walt Rogers was the first one in, then Phelan Klein Wolf. Then let's see, Cruise 1351. Then L Dog came in, and Little Prepper came in. It's commenting. We got more showing up on the numbers there, so we got some people that are just lurking and watching. And right, quick wrap up here back. Let me get some stuff straightened out here. I can bring us up to it. There we go. And I'm going to go up here. And let me get rid of the 99-cent banner there. Boom. There we go. And get back to comments. There. All right. So today we'll be proofreading Chapter 10 of the Against the Wind, running of Against the Wind, and it's the main book of the Against the Wind saga. I'll try to do a quick recap this time. Walt Rogers is the main character. He's 20 years old. He inherited his uncle's ranch up in Adams County, Idaho. And shortly after he inherited it, he was asked by the sheriff to assist Deputy Jason Red Hawk in tracking down some bank robbers that had held up the bank in town in council and headed not down the road, they headed off into the wilderness to hide. And so they went off. A couple weeks later, they were able to capture them, bring them back in, turn them over to the FBI. The FBI, as Sheriff Cooper would call them, it was the Federal Bureau of Incompetence, tried Jason and Walt had the guys tied up with ropes and stuff, not handcuffed, tied up, and they hadn't gotten away during the couple days they were coming back. So anyways, they untied them all at once, and instead of doing one at a time, bank robbers got free, overpowered the FBI agents that were there, got a gun from them, shot a couple of the FBI agents, took a woman bystander hostage. Walt wound up having to shoot them with his saddle rifle. The agent in charge of the FBI got all pissed off that Walt shot him. And at the same time, though, as the shooting was going on, a Humvee showed up with a team of Homeland Security Special Ops agents in it. And it was led by Regional Special Agent in Charge, Chris Davies, who told the FBI agent that they were there to take over the case from him, but since they screwed everything up and the suspects were now dead because of their screw up, he gets to handle all the paperwork on their end, and he was going to debrief Walt and Jason Red Hawk, find out if there's anything that the bank robbers had said that they could use in their case because they'd been identified as having ties to a terrorist organization. Later on, Walt talks to the principal of the school because his uncle had made an arrangement with the school to have the Future Farmers of America come out to the ranch to work with the rescue horses that he and the ranch veterinarian Anna had been gathering in. And that is when Walt met what was known as the Girl Squad. There were several, the girls, can't remember all the names right, but Sarah, Jerry, Cindy, Danny, I can't remember. Basically, they each had their hair. Sarah's hair is pitch black. That's her real color. Cindy was green. Jerry had red hair, bright red hair. They all different. Anyways, they all different colors of hair. They were on the soccer team. They're in the 4-H, and they're in the Future Farmers America, and they're in the Boy Scout co-ed venture crew. And that's when he met them, and they wound up spending a lot of time out at Walt's ranch fixing stuff up. Soon as Sarah turned 18, still, this would be about April, because this all started in September. In April, she had turned 18. She told Walt about her feelings for him, that she was she had a crush on him since he was a senior and she was a freshman in high school, or was a sophomore. Anyway, it's only 2.5 years difference between them. Things go on. Walt, the sheriff goes to retire, nominates Walt to to run in his place. Everybody in town loves Walt. Yeah, okay. And he winds up winning the election. Shortly after that, Chris Davies lets Walt know that, hey, he's moving. He's moving up from Boise to Adams County for his retirement home, and his wife is setting up home right there right now. She wants to live up there while Chris works down in Boise. Anyways, shortly after that, there's a asteroid is spotted, and Chris, who's on vacation, gets a notification. He has to contact DHS headquarters and comes down to the sheriff's office, and the other team shows up. Anyways, they wind up participating in a DHS conference call on it. FEMA's there in on it, and anyways, finds out there's going to be an asteroid coming in about a year. It just was coming out of the asteroid belt, massive one, slow moving. And so, he works with Chris to get the town set up with supplies and stuff, and things go on. That's the biggest gist of what's going on. There's a bunch of other little stories going along the way. One of the little stories along the way is that from Southern California, Joseph Donaldson, a senior vice president in the nation's largest oil company, after it is known what the asteroid's coming, decides that he's going to take his family up to his wife's grandparents' ranch up at in Indian Valley, which is south of Council, Idaho. And they two of the members of his security team did not want to go to Idaho, and they hired on a Kathy Dyers, who was just getting out of the Marine Corps, a master gunnery sergeant, and hired her on. And yeah, anyway, so we're going to pick up here now with chapter 10 and take it on here as it goes here. Chapter 10, The Passing Continues. October 21st, early dawn of the passing. At the Butterfield farm, Kathy had everyone in the underground gun range. When the shockwave from the Yellowstone eruption hit them, they were ready for it. Oh, time out. That's one of the things going on. With the asteroid passing so close to the Earth, it passed between the Earth and the Moon, but only 1/4 of the distance from the Earth to the Moon. So it was close to the Earth, and it has a heavy metal core of uranium and some other beryllium and some other ones. And so it has a really high gravitational pull. And it's been pulling ocean tides from one side of the earth as it slowly goes by. And it's been pulling the magma underneath the volcanic action going all over the place. And ending of chapter 9, Yellowstone erupted. Okay, so there you're back up to the final speed there. They had hauled several mattresses down into the range and had set up camping cots and chairs along with a couple low tables made from sheets of 3/4-inch plywood on top of a few stacked pallets. They had nothing set up that would fall over onto anybody. Earlier, when they first got to the farm, Kathy had chosen to stay in the barn instead of one of the travel trailers. I need to put that, make sure that it says travel trailers. Travel trailers. Lonnie had given Kathy a Wi-Fi internet remote repeater for the satellite system that he'd never installed. Kathy set it up in the barn so she could use the internet without going in. She hooked up a Cat 5 cable and ran it down into the underground gun range. Now she plugged in one of the Wi-Fi hubs she had gathered with all the other equipment in town. Lonnie had insisted everyone use it to keep downloading everything they could from the internet until the internet went down permanently. That's what they were doing as they waited for the sound shockwave of Yellowstone, the eruption, to hit them. All except Kathy, who was making supply runs back and forth to the house. She used Murphy's Law as the need to be outside. Major Joseph Donaldson, retired Marine and senior vice president of the largest oil company, American Oil Company, had felt that he could trust his most treasured possessions to this fellow fourth Forcon Marine. When he looked around at his family and knowing what they had now and knowing what they wouldn't have without her, he knew he'd made the right choice. His only concern was the way his 15-year-old son was now looking at Master Gunnery Sergeant Kathy Dyer. She was twice his age, and she was more than twice his age. Where is it? She was more than twice his age. See, this is what I proofread, because when I type it out, sometimes I forget some of the nuances to put in there. More than twice his age, and sorry, this is sounding confusing. And Jake, capitalized Jake, was enthralled by this woman who, when he first met her, had put him in his place and threatened to beat him if he ever disrespected his parents again. Joseph wondered if she knew what was going on with Jake. Yes, she had to. Very little got by the gunny. But as it turned out, he wasn't the only one that noticed the way Jake was looking at her. When Kathy returned with a case of water and water pouches and bent over to set the case on the floor, she heard oh, sorry, let me see. Sorry, this is going to sound confusing. It's him, but it's Joseph heard. That's why I need to use full names more often. Joseph heard one of his daughters calling Jake out. Jake Donaldson, geez, Mary said a little louder than she wanted to. Quit staring at Kathy's butt and close your mouth. You're drooling. I told you, Jane said to Mary. Kathy stopped what she was doing, looked over at Joseph and Linda with an exasperated expression on her face. Then she turned and walked over to Jake, knelt down in front of him. Jake, I'm too old for you. I told you that I would find you a couple of nice girls to date, but you have to stop. It's not good to be obsessed with me. I know, Jake said dejectedly, but right now you're the only woman here that's not related to me. The world could end and I'm still, Jake looked over at his parents and swallowed hard, a virgin. Heck, I haven't even been able to kiss a girl. Kathy reached out and ran her fingers through his hair, fluffing it up. The world is not going to end. Yes, it's going to be a lot tougher to live in, but that doesn't change the fact that I promised you what I did, and I will find you a girlfriend or die trying. Besides, Mary interjected, we're still virgins too, and we're older than you. You don't see us eyeing Paul or Ross, do you? Jane added quickly. Jake started to fire a nasty comeback, but Kathy held up an index finger in front of him. Don't let them bait you, she gave him an intent look. You have an advantage that they don't know about. What? I'll tell you later, Kathy smiled at him. Right now, you all, she looked at the girls, need to get back to work downloading the information we need to survive. Yes, ma'am, Mary and Jane said, sorrowfully realizing they had disappointed Kathy with their picking on Jake. Kathy put her earplugs back in her ears as she headed back to get more supplies. She knew that wearing the earplugs while out and about limited her situational awareness capacity, but she reasoned that it was the lesser of two evils. The first was being caught by the sound wave without the hearing protection. She had them in, but hadn't put the muffs on, her earmuffs on, because that was a compromise. She made a typo here. She wasn't willing to make. To be able to hear a little bit, to hear a little rather than nothing at all. She got to the back of the gun range and started to open the door when the hairs on the back of her neck stood up, causing her to stop. The door was open about 2 inches when she heard the sound. Well, it sounded like a dozen freight trains coming at her. She pulled the door closed with all her might and yelled, earplugs. Kathy latched the door and shut it tightly, but the noise was louder than it had been when the Cascadia subduction zone had ruptured. She had a set of earmuffs around her neck and quickly slid them up over her ears as she hurried back to the other end of the gun range. Kathy started with the twins and checking that they had their hearing protection on properly. Then she moved to Lonnie and Lori Butterfield. Then she noticed that Paul and Ross were checking Joseph and Linda's hearing protection. So she turned to Jake, who gave her a big thumbs up. Lonnie grabbed the tablet and wrote on it, loud but manageable, and passed it around. Everybody read it and nodded in agreement. Kathy wondered how loud it really was outside. Jerry Rourke and Marcus Young sat with their backs to the front of the mine, keeping a steely stare at the parents of the venture crew. All right, for those who haven't been here for the rest of it, the venture crew are staying in the mine on Walt's Ranch, an old abandoned mine that he had fortified up. Jerry and Marcus are the advisors for the venture crew. They were doing so to keep them from interrupting the venture crew leaders. Cindy Montoya, Amy Young, and Jerry Gray led the meeting. Behind them were Randy Cassidy, William Hawks, Danny Elmore. In front were 22 other members of the venture crew sat in a semicircle. Sorry, I'm going to fix that to semicircle. Boom. Semicircle discussing what they were going to do about the new development with the Yellowstone eruption. Some of the parents wanted to take over, but the two venture crew advisors stepped in and laid down the law, so to speak. This is a crew operation. They made the rules. If you don't like it, leave, Jerry said. They planned it. They got permission to be here. They're in charge. Not Mr. Young or I or any of you parents. Marcus and I are here to make sure it stays that way. And he said the sound of the eruption would get here any minute. Also, that David would contact us later to see how we are doing. William finished his report. I think we need to get everyone inside and as deep into the mine as is safe to do so. The mountain will help dampen the sound so it won't be so loud and painful. Amy said thoughtfully. That's kind of what Sheriff Rogers had one group do in Blood Moon Falling. Due to sorry, I read it wrong. Had one group in Blood Moon Falling due to escape the fuel tanker explosion. I agree, Cindy spoke up. The cargo containers will not provide any direct protection from the noise. We have 3 of them set up as a decontamination hallway, but that in itself will not stop the sound from getting into the mine. We need to try and move one in front of the opening, and the tighter the better. Froze. Then we need to stack bulk food at the opening to really absorb the sound waves. Excuse me. One, I've capitalized that word, raised his hand. I have a question. Yes, Mr. Connolly, Jerry acknowledged him. First of all, I'd like to say you've done a wonderful job here, and I don't know a lot about this stuff. But why put the food at the entrance to the mine? Won't it be at risk to animals? I need to put a comma in here. Well, comma, it would be a risk if we were to leave it there. 50-pound bags of rice, wheat, and sugar are very dense. Like you, another parent jibbed quickly. Several of the ventures turned quickly and shot back a one-word response: respect. That was all they had to say to get a weak and sorrowful sorry from the parent. Cindy cleared her throat and continued. Since they are dense, the sound will be absorbed by them, not penetrate into the mine very well. But we don't have enough bags to block the entire entrance, so we'll have to stack cases of number 10 cans there as well. Then we should drape blankets, sleeping bags, anything else we can to it that'll help block the sound. And we have very little time to do it, William added. Joe Connolly stood up and spoke proudly. You're right. What do you want me to do? Jerry and Marcus smiled as other parents stood to get their instructions. Soon everyone was doing something, moving bags or cases of food, sheets of plywood, gathering blankets, sleeping bags, clothing, or keeping the little children contained and safe in one of the side rooms further back in the mine. In 10 minutes, they had the entrance to the mine completely blocked off and several of the side rooms also protected with sheets of plywoods and blankets. In one side room that was designated as the Venture Crew Command Post, Jerry Rourke and Marcus Young, Cindy Montoya, Amy Young, Jerry Gray, Randy Cassidy, and William Hawks and Danny Elmore sat looking at the closed-circuit TV monitors that Cindy had set up. They had 3 monitors. One was set with a multiplexer on it, showing all 12 cameras in the small area like a tic-tac-toe board. One camera was on the inside of the mine entrance looking out towards the decontamination hallway. Another one was at the back of one of the cargo containers that made up the hallway, looking in at the entrance, had all the food blocking it. Several others were placed in trees around the area in front of the old mine. Some were aimed at the flat area, and others aimed away. The latter were PTZ, which is pan tilt zoom cameras. This gave them the ability to move cameras remotely and give them better views of around the mountainside. Another 2 monitors were linked to the multiplexer so that any of the cameras could be moved to one of them by clicking the number 1 or 2 at the top right hand left hand of the corner of the camera you wanted to enlarge. Now all we have to do is wait and watch, Cindy said. But what are we watching for, Danny asked. Anything that would indicate a loud sound was out there. Like what? Animals running when they should be laying down, birds flocking to flight. Amy's answered, that might be an unusual, yeah. Animals, oh, I need to change this right here. Anything that might be unusual movement. There might even be a shockwave we can see as it passes through the trees, Cindy added. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to see, but then again, we may not see anything. Look at the sky, William pointed to one of the cameras on the multiplexer monitor. Cindy quickly moved the image that William was pointing to one of the monitors. What do you see? The stars are deforming, he said, and pointed to the area on the image that he was talking about. They could see the stars shift as the compression wave moved through the sky towards the camera. That's definitely a shock wave, Cindy said, as she got and went to the main mine tunnel and hollered, "Shock wave is coming, get your earplugs in." Turning to go back in the room, she saw Jerry and Randy holding each other's hands so tight they were white. "It's about time, you two," she said under her breath in a Soto voice so soft that no one heard. Jason Redhawk and the 4 families that joined them at Bear Cave had been busy in the last several days setting up some of the equipment that was in the cargo containers that Sack Davies left with them. This included a couple of generators, a bunch of work lights, a couple of electric ranges, some very large refrigerator freezers and chest freezers. They decided they should move the containers into Bear Cave to make better use of them. Since the first container was unloaded to begin with, they moved it inside and placed it where they thought it would be best. To do it, made a thing here. To do it, where was it? Where is it? There it is. I'm looking at a different screen to make the corrections. To do it, they used. See, I got one monitor in front of me. I'm reading off of so you guys can see my face, and over here's the actual document that I can do changes on. This is the StreamYard screen here. And Aiden Ear's in the house. I missed him coming in a couple of minutes ago. All right. To do it, they used the hay wagon that was used to get the containers up to the cave. Without a power lift, they had to unload each of the containers, then jack them up onto the hay wagon and roll it into the cave. Then they repeated the process in reverse. Once they had the container in place, they moved the contents of the second container into the first, and so forth with each container thereafter. This took them over a week to do, and they were able to squeeze 5 of the 7 containers into the cave, while the 2 remaining containers why they lined up the the remaining 2 containers they lined up in front of the cave with the doors facing towards the cave entrance. When they opened up both the doors on both containers, it effectively blocked the entrance of the cave. Now they were turning the spaces between the containers into bedrooms and private family spaces with some of the tarps that were in the containers. Not bad, Jeremiah Redhawk said to his son Jason. Not bad at all. If Walt is right in what will happen after the asteroid passes, this may be some of the better living conditions around, Jason said with some optimism. Our conditions would be better down at Walt's compound, came a voice behind him. Both men sighed heavily, for they knew where this conversation was headed, and neither one of them wanted it to go there. Jeremiah turned around and faced his daughter. Don, you are right. Conditions would be better for you at Walt's home. He would welcome you openly. But think about this, please. What about his wife-to-be? How would that work out? What about the rest of your family? How would we go there and leave the others up here? Everyone would be welcome there. You know that. He's not just another white man to be feared and distrusted. I know that he would welcome everybody here. After all, he's letting us he's letting us stay, even here on his land because of this. He just, hang on, I need to capitalize the word. He gestured to the cave and the supplies within it. This is all your brother asked for, nothing more, yet he gave more. I do know he is very honorable, and I would trust him with you. I would be proud for you to wed him, and just as proud for him to wed you, but you know our people would not have stood for it. You disagree with the council all the time, sometimes almost violently. That is also true. But why then did you ask him not to see me more? Why did you not stand up for me? I did not ask him not to see you, and I did stand up for you. Don's mouth dropped in shock and moved wordlessly for several seconds before she was able to speak. What then? Hang on. I got to fix this. This doesn't make sense. I got to change this sentence around. Why then did he stop coming around? Don, Jason spoke up. Walt heard what the council was going to do to our family, that they would remove father from the council and censor him, that mother would not be allowed to come to the center. You know, your sister and I would have been kicked out of school, and more than that, he did not tell me about. Don started to ask Jason why, but he stopped her. Walt cared so much for you, for me, for our family, that he went to the council and interrupted one of the sacred meetings and extracted a promise in blood from them and made one in return. A blood promise with the council? Yes. What did he make them promise, and what did he promise in return? I don't know all of this, but this I did find out. Father would always have his seat on the council. Our family would be left alone and not punished for the two of you having real feelings for each other. And that all would be free from any reprisals for his rash actions. And finally, that he would never enter the reservation again unless the council asked him to come. He had real feelings for me, Don said, half in surprise, half in joy. Yes, he did, but that was 7 years ago. Yet he has had to move on. He made a vow to protect us that he will not break. and he will not break it. Not even now, his father said factually. Don, hang on. No matter what you feel for him, please understand. Now, this is not the time. Now is not the time to tell him. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders right now, and he has to keep focused on his job of protecting us all, Native American and white men. Jason spoke up solemnly. I understand, but once this crisis is past, I will speak my heart to Walt and his new woman, Sarah Ahern, Jason said. Dawn paled when she realized whose Walt's fiance was. Little Sarah? Yes, lightning death. Well, I guess I will have to speak carefully. Suddenly they were all driven to their knees in pain as the sound wave hit Bear Cave. Had they been out in the open, they would have suffered much worse. Fortunately, being in the mountain cave, with the opening mostly blocked by cargo containers, the sound was cut in half. Though still debilitating to some were able to get hearing protection in right away and then help others get theirs in. Walt woke when his cell phone started vibrating, indicating he had a text message. He went to move his right arm and found he couldn't feel it. A wave of panic swept over him for a second or two, then till he realized the reason why he couldn't feel his arm. It was asleep from restricted blood flow because Sarah was sleeping on it. Walt smiled, reached across with his left arm and stroked Sarah's hair and brushed it from her face. Then he contorted his arm to get the phone, which was in his left inside jacket pocket. Retrieving the phone, Walt opened the text message feature to read the message from his dad. Son, we dodged a bullet with this one. Ham radio operators are reporting that Mount Rainier, Shasta, and St. Helens have erupted, barely. Hang on, I got to fix the dot mess, the way the dots are set up here. I hate the ones that are close together. And for some reason, when I switched computers with a document, the new computer changed the spaced out dots to compressed dots. Barely. Very small lava flow, didn't expect much ash of any. Satellite images showed the Cascadia subduction zone flowing very heavily into the low tide areas. No ash clouds. Expect large volumes of steam with returning water. Should know by 10 o'clock if it's safe to make the run to the Aherns. As he read the message, thinking of the implication, Sarah surprised him with a soft-spoken question. Is that a good thing or bad? Hey, babe, feeling any better? Much with you here, Sarah sighed and wiggled against him. So, is that a good thing or bad? She repeated. Hang on, I got to do that. Put a comma there and capitalize that word. Yeah, sometimes when I type this up, I am in the zone and I'm typing so fast, and I miss the mistakes I make when I'm typing. I'm not sure. He took a deep breath and blew it out slowly, then continued. It could be both. But I'm hoping it's a good thing. Low lava flows from these three volcanoes mean less ash in the air and coming in our direction. Large volumes of steam should be a good thing for us. That means there's extra moisture in the air to form clouds and cause rain. That'll help clean the air of the ash from any volcano, from any volcanoes. There we go. Right? Yeah. The only drawback I can see is that if it causes super heavy downpours in the areas where the ash is building up, which could cause mudslides or rather ash slides and flash floods. So like I said, I'm not sure. Why do you think that Shasta and the others didn't blow big like Yellowstone or Cascadia did? All I can think is because the Cascadia subduction zone fault ruptured as a volcanic fissure, much like the Siberian Traps did, and stayed open. This allowed the lava, which had been forced through those volcanoes, to keep flowing westward and out the open fissure. Because of that, there wasn't much pressure on those other volcanoes to cause a full eruption, just barely enough to leak out. Good. I like that explanation. Sarah sighed and snuggled a little tighter against Walt. After a few seconds, she realized that Walt's arm was throbbing beneath her shoulder. She propped herself up off the arm and looked down at it, seeing that it was slightly bluish. She said a little louder than she should. Say, "Oh, you should have. You should have told me I was cutting off the blood to your arm. Can you feel anything?" Walt strained to lift the arm, and when he got it halfway up, it flopped over at his elbow like a wet noodle. "Oh no!" Sarah exclaimed as she grabbed the arm and started massaging it to get the blood circulating. "Your arm is so cold, you should have said something," she scolded him. Walt just smiled as Sarah worked his arm. Every now and then, he would try to flex his fingers. "Ow," he would say, as the nerve endings regained their function, and he felt the thousand stabbing needles that comes with a numb extremity waking up. It's waking up slowly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't think that line on your shoulder would do this," Sarah said, obviously upset about his arm. "Don't worry about it. It was nice waking up next to you," Walt said with a shy, boyish grin. We'll have to see what positions work best for snuggling where I don't disable you." "You didn't disable me," Walt protested. "Really? Try to hold me." Walt reached out with his left arm and to scoop her, but she caught it with her right hand and said, "Stop it. Use your right arm, silly." Walt smiled sheepishly, then quickly shot his right arm around her. His right arm around Sarah and pulled her to him and kissed her passionately. When he finished the kiss, he eased the pull on her. She smiled and whispered, "Faker. We have a lot to work out, like who gets to sleep, who gets foot rubs first, who does the laundry, who cooks, who gets the upper bunk, and who showers first." "Whoa, whoa, whoa," Sarah said in a panic. She said in a panic, sitting up straight and used a whispering voice again. "Who gets the upper bunk? I don't think so. We will be in the same bed. I don't care who gets foot rubs first or second, but we will be in the..." Sarah catches a slight grin on Walt's face and smacks his hand and throws his arm back at him. "That wasn't funny." "Why not?" "Why not? I've been waiting over a year to be Mrs. Walt John Rogers and share your bed." "It wasn't funny." I need to put some here. Walt's countenance fell as he lowered his head. "You're right. I'm sorry. I just don't know how to make jokes. Humor is an acquired skill. Sarah smiled, tilting her head a little bit. We'll work on we will work on it later once I'm moved in. I await your tutelage. She laid back down next to her and put her head on his chest and wrapped an arm, saying, I'm going to change that, wrapped an arm over him, making sure not to pin his arm, and cut off the blood flow again. And I put again in there. Walt began stroking her hair, and Sarah sighed. I feel so much better with you here when the stupid earthquakes happen. I can't fight them. And that scares me even more than anything I've ever faced. It scares you that you can't physically fight and beat the quakes? Yeah, silly, huh? No, not so silly. They scare me too. They laid in silence for a few minutes before they heard the rustle of sleeping bags as others began to toss and turn and stretch as they woke up. They heard Danny ask softly, what time is it? 7:45, Mick answered back. Walt squeezed Sarah with his right arm and pushed her jet black hair behind her ear with his left hand. Sarah looked up at him questioningly. Time for me to get going, he said reluctantly. Us. I'm going with you today, Sarah stated so matter-of-factly as she got up that Walt didn't even offer any resistance. Sarah walked over to where her father was sleeping thought about waking him, and decided against it. Instead, she went over to Mick and Danny. Hang on, I just Mick and Danny. And whispered, H-I-S-B-E-R, and whispered, guys, get up and be quiet. What's up, Danny asked before Mick could. We're going to help Walt check out the town. Quietly, they gathered the things they were going to take with them, and made their way out of the basement. Sarah left a note for her parents with the radio frequency they would be on. When they got to the driveway, the sun was just cresting the hill to the east. It was an overcast day with dark clouds moving, I need to put it up there, moving very quickly. So that's important that it's very quickly. Moving very quickly from the west. That was a good sign to Walt. It meant the ash from the Yellowstone eruption would be blown away from them. In the western sky, there was the faint glow of the Cascadia subduction zone still evident on the clouds coming from that direction. That would soon fade away as the sun rose higher in the sky. Another good sign in Walt's mind was that there wasn't any ash falling from the volcanoes to the west. The massive rupture of the Cascadia subduction zone had provided the relief valve for the surge of magma that had passed in the last couple of hours. But it looked as if they might be able to move as it looked, man, I wish I could get my tongue untied here. It looked as if they might be able to, after all. But first they had to check out the town and how bad the damage was. Walt knew about a few dead bodies in the rubble of some of the collapsed buildings from what Kathy Dyer had told him. So because of that, he knew there would be even more bodies elsewhere in town to be removed. Walt took the bucket off the air intake snorkel for the Humvee and tossed it in the back of the Humvee. He noticed that Danny and Mick were carefully using the brooms from the decontamination hallway to clean the inches of ash off of Danny's old ugly green ex-forestry truck. You might not want to use your truck, Danny, The ash will clog the air filter and get sucked into the engine, Walt cautioned. Not to worry, Walt. You won't believe what this thing came with under the hood. Danny smiled as she used the broom to gently push the ash from the hood of the F-550 crew cab. This was a support vehicle that carried all the gear for the incident commander for the region. It was modified to go into any situation like fire, dust storms, volcanic ash fields, and such. The only reason they sold it was, was the service record. It kept going through batteries and alternators. Whoever designed the beefed up electrical system forgot to include battery isolators and a directional diode switch. Once I added those, I haven't had to replace any of the 4 batteries or either of the 2 alternators. Once Danny and Mick had the hood and grill cleaned off, Danny popped the hood release and raised the hood up to expose a 460 cubic inch engine with an extra canister air filter and decibel and a decibel intake. Pointing to the air system, Danny said, it's a specially designed air intake, much like your deputies cobbled together for your patrol vehicles, but mine is hidden under the hood. Dang, now I'll have to stop complaining about its color. Hey, what's wrong with its color? Danny glared at Walt. Nothing, it's perfect. Darn tootin' it is. And the toolboxes are loaded too, Mick chimed in. Walt eyed Danny suspiciously. I don't want to know, do I? There's nothing illegal in there. Tools, camping gear, food, jumper cables, tow cables, bottle jacks, everything a good venture scout should have. 30 minutes later, they were out in front of the sheriff's office with 6 of the deputies and three of the DHS agents assigned to the supply depot. Walt was writing down what they had seen on their way to the office. One of the deputies had spotted the 4 burglars that Kathy told them about in the wee hours of the morning. When the deputies finished making the report, Walt introduced the DHS agents. All of you already know DS agent Jesse Carter. He was my brother's best man at his wedding. Until Sac Davey gets here, Jesse is the lead agent for DHS here. Most of you know agents Tim Jones and Pat Smith. Agent Bud Myers is back at the depot with how many more agents, Jesse's? 2 more agents and 4 supply clerks. There'll be more coming from Boise. How many more are going to be stationed here? We will have 15 agents, 6 supply clerks, 1 comm specialist, and all of their family members at last update, plus a an FPS, which is Federal Protection Service specialist, who checked in unexpectedly this morning. Jesse said, thinking he was going to surprise Walt with that bit of news. How is Officer Trickle doing? Walt asked with a slight smile that no one caught sight of. What? Never mind, Jesse said, obviously flustered. She's doing fine. We tried to contact her rally point, but no one responded. I posted a message on WebEOC in case they get it back up. They will know where she's at. Sarah started to ask if Officer Trickle was any relation to Bobby Trickle, but thought better of it, especially when Walt shot her a wink. Good. Maybe we'll get to keep her. I have a feeling that we're going to need her, Jesse. But since the Federal Protective Service is the Uniform Police Division of DHS, Chris can just tell them that they need to reassign her to us. Well, to find out what we need, I think we need to do more. Dang on, it froze up here on me. There we go. We do need to do a more in-depth recon of the town and the other communities all the way up to New Meadows. I want 2 units, two men each, to head to New Meadows. Be sure to hit Fruitvale, Starkey, and Glendale. Take it slow. I don't need you taking a corner into a landslide or a new goalie. I know you could usually make it in an hour, but you'll want to take it slow and talk to people. I think about 3 hours to New Meadows. If you make a better time on the straightaway, that's fine, but don't push it. If the road conditions are good, radio back and let me know how you're doing. I may have you go on to Rambley Ranch or even the county line. I think it would be a good idea for us to team up with the agents so we can get to know each other. Jesse, I would like it if one of your agents could go to the second in the second unit heading to New Meadows to show that we have federal resources to help calm any fears up there. Tim's your man, Jesse said, nodding to Tim. Good. Gary, pick who you want for the other unit and get going. On it, he replied and pointed to 2 deputies standing next to each other as he walked away. You got lead. Tim and I will follow. Walt turned to Nelson. Nelson, I want you and Jesse to go down to Mesa and Alpine and check on the store and Lakey's Cafe. Then I want you to go to the Butterfields farm and check with our new deputy, Kathy Dyer. She's going to be our point person down there. When did you hire her? Nelson asked, a little confused. Last night. It's a complicated story, so don't ask. Got it. Oh yeah, she's a Marine, 4th Forcon Master Gunnery Sergeant, so don't piss her off. Oh, fun, Jesse said dryly. Then turning to another deputy, Walt continued. Chris, the generator for the office needs your loving care. I haven't looked, so it might be something simple, or the back of the building may have fallen on it. Would you assess the whole building? Drag the county engineer out here if you need to. I need to know if the building is safe to use or as our headquarters, or we need to relocate to one of the warehouses. I'll get Chief Harker over here. I'll get Chief Harker to get his crew over here as well. That way they can help us evaluate any of the surrounding buildings that need attention sooner than others. Then they can help us get relocated or help us start checking on the neighborhoods. Just then another earthquake began. It was a minor quake that would have registered about 3.2 if there was a working seismograph to measure it. It only lasted about 3 seconds. These little quakes will continue for the rest of the week, and the next couple of weeks will continue. Sorry. And hang on a minute here. And then got to figure out how I'm going to rework this. Okay, here we go. Yeah, these little quakes will continue for the rest of the week and then occasionally for the next couple of weeks, most likely. Walt said, realizing that Sarah was now holding his left hand tightly. And those that haven't figured it out, Sarah and I are getting married. He held up his ghost white left hand with hers attached to it. Several of the group chuckled at Walt's white hand. Mark and Mary Mark and Mary were driving one of the gators to Redoubt Village to check on everyone there in person. They had talked to Bobby Trickle and Howard Earp on the ham radio, but they still wanted to make sure everyone was okay. Michael and Jenna were driving the other gator and checking on the ranch hands at the bunkhouses. David and Sally were back in the radio room. David was contacting the usual suspects, as it were, while Sally was monitoring other ham radio traffic. Hang on, let me get something to drink here. All right. Kurt and Candace, now I'm going to put the last name in there because it's been a while since we discussed them. Smythe. Kurt and Candace Smythe were monitoring the DHS servers and working on getting into the DoD servers to find out what they could on what was really happening around the country and the world. The connections were spotted due to the volcanic ash in the atmosphere and the power supply issues at the various internet hubs that were still working. A lot of the time they had to make their access into the system via the satellite system. Both sets of Walt's grandparents, Stan, Martha, Tom, and Rebecca, were going through the ranch house, making a list of things that needed to be repaired and cleaning up any broken items that had missed being secured in the days before. Fortunately, there wasn't much to clean up or put on the list. A ceramic bowl that had been left on the fireplace mantel, a wall-mounted brass oil lamp had bounced off its screw, a couple of plates that had come out of the kitchen cabinet when the door wasn't closed enough to latch safely, and of course, non-breakable such as books and paper goods that bounced off their shelves. All in all, the ranch house had come through the quakes pretty much unscathed, as had the inhabitants. Walt's immediate family was safe for now. What the status of his other relatives that did not come, but what was the status of his other relatives that did not come to the ranch was unknown for now. Dan's plans and preparations started so many years before, and Walt's additions to put those plans with Sarah's suggestions had made sure the Rogers family had a fighting chance to survive this new world that was just beginning to unfold. Let me double check something here. Yeah, okay. I was just checking to see if I had an extra space in there or not. Kathy and Paul were patrolling the farm to check on the cattle, fences, outbuildings, including the water tank. The cattle were gathered under trees and various pole buildings scattered around the farm. As far as they could tell, none of the cattle were sorry. I almost thought I was confused there. As far as they could tell, none of the cows were standing or lying out in the open ash. They had instinctively huddled together under what shelter they could find. Most fortunately was the fact that the cattle did not stampede when the sound wave from Yellowstone arrived. The pole buildings that the cattle were seeking shelter under were just that, buildings made of vertical poles. The poles were usually 6 to 10 inches in diameter with a sloped roof. The poles were usually 12 feet apart in 2 or 3 rows, which were also 12 feet apart. The roof was sloped in one direction usually. There were a few pole buildings that were built with a peaked roof like a barn. Most did not have sides, but some did, usually just one side on the roof where the one side where the roof sloped down to keep the snow that fell off the roof or the splattering rain out. The slope of the pole building was such that the snow would not build up too much before sliding off. So far, the same was true with the ash. Oh, got those three dots that were changed on me. For the ash, somewhat. The ash was accumulating on some of the pole buildings, but the quakes would shake them and the ash would slide off. When light rains and ash combined, there'd be no there. When light rain and the ash combined, well, no one was sure whether the ash would wash off or set up like concrete. As time would tell, it would be a bit of both, depending on the slope of the roof and how hard the rain was. Up at the water tank, they found the makeshift teepee, which they'd put on top of it, holding up just fine. All the ash slid right off, and the wind hadn't bothered it at all. Their water storage was in condition and looked to stay that way for quite a while. The twins were checking out. Hang on a minute. Did I boo-boo there? Let me go back up here. No, okay, Kathy and Paul. The twins were checking out the other livestock, pigs, chickens, goats, and horses. All had survived the night for the most part. A few chickens had died from fright when the sound wave Yellowstone had arrived. The rest had stopped laying and would not do so again for several months. The goats that were currently being able to be milked, most would dry up until they gave birth again. The goat cheese for the next several years would have a very distinct flavor to it. Lonnie would still win the award at the county fair, but the cheese would have a very unique taste to it. Jake and his mother and grandparents were busy working on cataloging all of the data they had downloaded. Ross was working on turning the ornamental cupola on the barn into a lookout post and sniper's nest. First, he took 4 closed-circuit TV cameras that Kathy had picked up on one of her late-night supply runs and attached it to the bottom of each corner of the cupola. Since these were pan-tilt zoom cameras, they each had a 270-degree visibility, and they could be set in manual mode or programmed to do a number of panning segments. One was aimed at the driveway where it met the road. Another was aimed at the road where the road met the main highway. The other two would scan their full field of view. This would give them the best visual coverage of the property and the main access routes. Kathy had picked up 2 linkable control panels for the system. This would allow them to be viewed and controlled from both the house and the barn loft where Kathy was sleeping. Kathy was planning to go back and see if there's some more cameras that she could pick up to expand the system. The controllers could handle 16 cameras, but Kathy wasn't sure the store had that many. But she knew she had at least 4 more pan-tilt zoom cameras and 4 stationary cameras. Ross wanted to put some closer to the road on the far side of the house and chicken barn. Ross was also taking sheets of plywood and Wonderboard cement backing board and layering the space inside the cupola between the 2x4 studs with them. These layers would be a little under 4 inches thick on the side and back. On the front, he added 4 more layers, making it about 7 inches thick. This would stop any civilian round and most military rounds. They only need to worry about big bore rifles with armor-piercing rounds, and that was highly unlikely that they'd have to contend with any of them out here. As Kathy and Paul returned to the house, she could see Ross putting up the vent louvers back in place on the cupola. Now he just had to install the extension cord for the electric blankets that would mask the Outlook's heat signature from infrared scope binoculars. The electric blankets would make it look as if animals were in the barn below and their body heat was just rising up and out the cupola as normal. Kathy came into the house wearing the dark blue navy cargo pants and long sleeve navy blue shirt that now sported the deputy sheriff badge that Walt had given her. She was also wearing the Smith & Wesson 500 and 2 speed loaders attached to the web belt. Also on the belt, but on her left side, was another pistol. This was one of her 2 stainless steel Smith & Wesson 645s with an ambidextrous safety and a 4-pack of spare magazines for it. I'm going into town to see the sheriff and see if I can get more security cameras. Major, do you and Jake want to come along? We need to see about getting more canning supplies and clothing. Joseph looked at Kathy with some apprehensive, with some apprehension. Are you sure we should be leaving the farm right now? It's safer now than it might be in a couple days, she answered. The real troublemakers won't be coming out in the daytime until things start to get bad for them. Right now, the opportunists are the ones coming out, and they're doing it just at night. Joseph pondered Kathy's reason and said, you're right. Now is the best time to go. Can we go too? Jane asked quickly. Please, can we? Oh, I forgot that. Mary added. I'm not so sure so many of us should be going into town right now. Linda spoke up quickly. Oh, Mom, Mary whined. If we don't go now, we might not be able to go for weeks or even months, Jane added. If this is going to be a big supply run, then Major, you should take the Jimmy with the 12-footer. Kathy was referring to the GMC 3500 4x4 that had a cab-level camper shell on it and a 12-foot low-top Wells Cargo brand trailer. Paul can ride shotgun. Hang on here. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm reading it right because I may have made a mistake here a little bit later here in this chapter. So Paul can ride shotgun for you and Jake. Let me put that in there. Come on. Shotgun for you and Jake. I'll take the Raptor with the girls, and everybody carries a rifle and pistol. Then Kathy turned to Linda. Will that meet with your approval? She asked. Linda sucked her lips in and considered Kathy's proposal. After a minute, she sighed. Everyone will wear body armors and BDUs and carry radios with throat mics. Ross will drive the Raptor so Kathy can take her Harley. There's where I thought I made the mistake. I didn't. Ross will drive the Raptor so Kathy can take her Harley for rapid response. And I want 15-minute updates, she added as she crossed her arms with the signal she'd made up her mind and would not tolerate any discussion on the matter. Okay, then, Joseph said, signaling his agreement. We better get changed and get geared up. 20 minutes later, they were on their way into town with Kathy leading the way on her Harley Davidson by a half mile. Joseph came next in the GMC 3500 with the trailer, and Ross brought up the rear in the Raptor. 3 bullets whizzed over his head and impacted against the stone wall of the federal building as he ducked behind the fender of the Humvee. You Homeland boys ain't going to take our guns from us. Special Agent in charge Chris Davies shook his head in disbelief and shouted back, "What the hell are you talking about? We did not come here to take anyone's guns." "Yeah, that's just what you Homeland boys say in those books," the shooter shouted back at Chris. "You've been reading too much fantasy fiction. Up until now, I didn't give a rat's ass about you or your guns," Chris said, cocking his head to the right to look through the window to gauge exactly where the shooter was at. Of 3 men slowly advancing on his position. One of the 3 hollered back, "If that's true, why did you come here armed with your machine gun?" "Because I work here, you dipstick," Chris yelled at them as he took hold of the side mirror, leaned down, looked under the Humvee till he could see the feet of all 3 men advancing on him. Aiming his Kel-Tec KSG shotgun in front of their feet, Chris shot a double-aught buckshot shell. The pellets struck the pavement about 10 feet in front of him, and the pellets did 2 things. First, they kicked up a cloud of volcanic ash at the 3 attackers. The second, they skipped along the pavement, rising no more than 8 inches. It was then that the pellets struck the feet and ankles and shins with damaging results. All 3 attackers were hit, and their thoughts immediately went from thinking about Chris to the pain in their lower extremities. Chris quickly pulled himself up and pumped another shell into the chamber. The Kel-Tec KSG shotgun was of unique design, having 2 magazine tubes and the ability to switch back and forth between them. This gave the user the ability to load different types of shells into the magazine tubes to choose which they wanted to shoot. This time, Chris had selected the tube that contained slug shells. Rising up and looking over the hood of the Humvee, he brought the laser sight on line to with the attacker to his right, and sent the 1 1/4 ounce slug into the attacker, knocking him off his feet and blowing out his chest cavity. The man in the middle was already on the pavement, curled up in a ball, crying in pain, holding his lower legs and rolling back and forth in the ash. Chris pumped another slug shell into the chamber and lined up on the 3rd man, who was standing, or rather limping around, cussing but still holding his rifle. "Drop your weapon," he shouted as he stepped around the front fender of the Humvee and slowly advanced on the limping attacker. To his left, Chris saw 4 federal agents come charging out of the front door of the federal building with M16s in hand. They proceeded down the steps to the sidewalk and took up a position there. To his right, he saw 6 more coming out of the side front door in a little bit more organized manner. 4 of them had M16s. One had a 110 MI semi-automatic sniper system, and the last one had a SAW, squad automatic weapon. They broke into 2 teams, with the agent with the M110 taking defensive cover position by the concrete planter near the door, and with 2 agents with M16s, and the other 3 slowly advancing into the street, sweeping the area visually as they proceeded. "I said, drop your weapon." The attacker looked back and forth between the groups of federal agents and realized that he and his buddies had really screwed up when they decided to come down to the federal building and raise some ruckus about the lack of correct information that had been provided about the effects of what the asteroid would have on their city. Slowly raised one hand, leaned over, and set his rifle on the ground with the other. I guess you Homeland boys have us, he sighed heavily. So what are you going to do with Jimmy and me? What we could do, your stupid we could do what your stupid trash book said we would do and just shoot you, or we can turn you over to the local police. What do you want? Chris said as he shook his head side to side. What do you want? The police. He's hang on a second. The police, he said, make sure I want to get this right. The police, he said, with disbelief that they were at what was being offered him. Good. I've wasted enough ammunition on you morons. Are you serious? Hang on. The man asked, you're not going to kill us or make us disappear or ship us off to some FEMA detention camp? I hate to pop your bubble. No, that's not true. I'm more bubble that there are FEMA detention camps that the government has set up to dump people into. That's just a twisted fantasy of some left-wing troublemakers that they put out on the internet to stir up the far right-wing writers and their readers. We've got far more important things to worry about and do than taking guns off of law-abiding citizens. Then how come nothing was ever put out against those stories? Because there's just stupid fictional stories, and we don't have time to worry about idiots that would actually believe such nonsense. Chris smiled. Oh, change that S to a small s. Smiled as four city SUVs hurried up the street. For the last 2 hours, Walt, Sarah, Danny, and Mick had been driving around town checking on damage from the previous night's earthquakes. Sarah was riding shotgun with Walt in the sheriff's department Humvee, and Mick was doing likewise in Danny's ugly green F-550. They were taking one block at a time, photographing each building and checking the damaged buildings. Operating as teams, they would take turns entering damaged buildings, which they deemed were safe to enter, and checking for anyone injured or trapped inside. So far, they've found a dozen deceased bodies and about 3 dozen moderately injured people and 10 more seriously injured people. The city's volunteer community emergency response team, known as CERT, were also coming in and out. Were coming out in force and checking buildings as well. They were all using the standard search and rescue X marking system on each building they search. They brightened up when they saw the sheriff out searching buildings and getting his hands dirty too. They liked seeing that he was not an office sheriff, but a hands-on sheriff. Word spread quickly and more volunteers began to show up. Deputy Chris Harden had called on the radio and told Walt that Chief Harker said to build the sheriff's building, SHERI, sheriff's building, would need some reinforcement, but it was safe enough for now. Also, that the generator had tipped over. Hang on. Tipped over, and the safety shutoff switch that had been activated by the safety and the safety shutoff switch had been activated by the earthquake. They reset the switch. Hang on here again. I forget the word I want to put in here. Tip the generator back upright. They tip the generator back upright and they reset. I don't need to have they in there. And reset the switch so they had power in the office again, and hit save so I don't lose any of my changes. Chris added that the new deputy had shown up with a group in tow. They were now headed over to Walt's location. Walt looked up with a smile when he first heard and then saw Kathy's Harley Davidson motorcycle. She came around the corner doing about 7 miles an hour and was followed by a GMC 3500 4x4 that had a cab level camper on it and a 12-foot low top trailer, and then a 450 Raptor. What appeared to be soldiers standing in the back with assault rifles at the ready. As Kathy pulled up to him, Walt saw that she was wearing blue tactical garb and had the deputy sheriff's badge that he gave her. Sorry, I'm missing a word in here. I want to see where I'm going to put it. I'm going to give her. There we go. Well, so she was wearing blue tactical garb and the deputy sheriff badge he'd given her on the shirt. A smile of satisfaction crept across his lips. Stopping the Harley, Kathy pushed the kickstand down and removed her helmet. Morning, Sheriff. Good morning, Gunny, Walt replied. Didn't expect to see you here today. Well, Kathy started, then paused for a second. I thought you should meet my other boss. You jerked your thumb back towards the GMC that stopped about 30 feet back, and his kids and other bodyguards. Okay, let's get to it. Kathy slid off the Harley, put her helmet on the handlebars, and then turned towards the trucks and waved them forward as she called out, "Come on up, guys, and meet the sheriff." Joseph pulled the GMC forward some more and stopped about 10 feet behind Kathy's Harley. Paul, who had already exited Jimmy, walked alongside, slightly ahead of the front bumper. When Joseph stopped the GMC, Paul took 2 more steps and waited for Joseph and Jake to exit the truck and join him. Ross followed Joseph's example and also pulled forward, but stopped 6 feet behind the cargo trailer and slightly off to the left so that the Raptor was visible in the side mirror of the Jimmy. Then he got out and walked up with the twins to where Kathy was. When everyone was gathered around, Kathy made introductions. Sheriff, this is Major Joseph Donaldson, U.S. Marine Corps, 4th Recon, retired, and Senior Vice President of Standard Oil. Walt reached out his right hand. Good to have an experienced military leader nearby. Hope I can convince you to share your knowledge and help out where you can. Joseph took Walt's hand firmly. I'll offer what assistance I can, but my family comes first. Absolutely. Family must come first. Kathy took it as a cue to continue introductions. These are the twins, Mary and Jane. They're 17. This is Jake. He's 15. Walt shook each of their hands as he greeted them. This is Ross Martin, Paul Snyder, the major security team. Gentlemen, he shook Walt said as he shook their hands. Good to have you in the county. The major's wife is back on the farm with her grandparents, Kathy added after the handshaking was done. I look forward to coming down and meeting her as soon as I can. Now, gotta fix some dots here. One dot, one. Walt turned a little and gestured to Sarah. This is my fiance, Sarah Ahern, her brother Mick, and his wife Danny. As everyone was saying hello, Mary stepped up to Sarah. You're the sheriff's fiance? Yeah. Sarah sighed slightly. We're going to get married as things settle down a bit. But you don't look 22. Good. I'm only 19 and a half. Walt's 22. Thanks for not adding age to my looks. Walt leaned over and whispered softly in Sarah's ear. Why don't you take them over to Danny's? Got it. Apostrophe S. Danny's truck and talk them over there a little while I talk to their dad and the others. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief as her face started to redden. Really? You're dismissing like that? Walt realized how his request sounded and quickly held his hand. No, not at all. That's not what I meant. He tilted his head and whispered, Venture crew him. Oh, Sarah's face brightened. Duh, silly me, sure thing. That's a great idea. Then she turned back to the teens. Guys, why don't we talk over here by Danny's truck? She pointed to the big, ugly green Ford. Walt turned back to the others and spoke. Sarah's the venture crew chief, and Danny's one of her vice presidents. The ventures are big into emergency preparedness, horses, firearms training. I figured that your children could use some friends and group structure. Stopped suddenly, lowered his head and shook it inside. Damn, I'm only several years older than in the last 2 years, so it seems like I've changed my outlook on others. Man, do I feel old for my age. Sheriff, Joseph spoke up. I get the feeling you're trying to do too much. You need to delegate some of your responsibility to others. And space. Joseph stopped at the realization that he just stepped into a trap. Walt smiled and sighed. I know, but I can't just yet. I got a whole county looking to me to lead the way and protect them. But I would like you guys to take lead in keeping the situation in the southern end of the county together and organized. I can't just drop you on the old time residents. Lonnie is who I need to take the primary active role in leading them down there. He would have to introduce you to everyone, with Kathy both as one of my deputies and part of your group. As such, she would be the figure of authority for down there. Thanks for nothing, Kathy muttered in mock annoyance at not being asked to be the government representative. Actually, that's your thanks for my helping you get the supplies you want. Walt smiled shyly. Kathy, Joseph, Ross, and Paul and Ross gave Walt a blank stare. Walt continued to smile as he reached in his pocket to where his notebook was. He pulled out a notebook and said, I took the liberty of noting which business buildings were damaged to the point where the contents could not be secured. I've talked to a few of the business owners this morning, and Walt tore out several pages from the book and handed them over to Kathy. Deputy, you are hereby authorized to take what items you deem necessary for your project to store the data we need to rebuild our world. Kathy looked over the list of businesses and a crooked smile slowly crept across her lips. It's a good thing we brought the trailer and a second truck. We're going to need them. She handed the plural list to Joseph. Will that do? That should do just fine, she said. Just so you know, we're going to grab all the closed circuit TV cameras we can find. We have a few set up, but we need to set up down on the highway so we can monitor it from the house. That sounds like an excellent idea. I wish I had done that out at the ranch. If you don't use all of them, please bring some back so we can set some up at the north end of the county. Kathy nodded. We'll grab all we can find and drop off to you what we know we won't need at what we know we won't use at your office today and bringing it back in a day or two. Sounds like a winner of an idea. Hey, Walt, Sarah called from over by Danny's truck as she walked towards him. The girl said that Kathy has been given a Marine Forcon training and the like. Is there any way we can send a couple of deputies down to Indian Valley for a couple days a week so she can come out to the mine and train the venture crew once the highway is closed at the county line for the winter? We'll talk about it next week when things settle down. 1, 2, 3. If they settle down, that is, Walt said, but that's a very good idea. All right. But I do need to ask a special favor of her, Sarah stated as the breeze increased and blew her duster open, exposing her quick draw rig. Nice rig. Kathy immediately took notice of it and asked, are you any good with it? No shooting, Walt said very quickly in a loud voice. Don't worry, Danny spoke up. We've been practicing something that's really cool. As Danny walked over, Sarah pushed the duster behind her with her right hand and grabbed it with the left. Then she tucked it into the gun belt on her left side. Danny took a small water bottle out of her day pack and held it by the cap with her index up. She stood a little in front and to the right of Sarah, facing the same way as Sarah so she couldn't see her. This is cool. Then she held the bottle out in front of Sarah. After several seconds, she let go of the bottle. The bottle only fell about a quarter of an inch before it landed on the hexagonal barrel of Sarah's pistol. Holy shit, Mary exclaimed bug-eyed. Wow, Paul said. I don't think I've ever seen anyone move that fast, Kathy added in amazement. She's not done. Suddenly, the pistol was back in its holster, and her hand was wrapped around the bottle, which seemed not to move at all. As you can see, I'm good with pistols, but rifle, well, they're another story. The favor that Danny and I want to ask you is, would you please train us on our Barrett M107A1s, Sarah said. What? Kathy asked in disbelief. You have a Barrett M107A1? We each have one, Danny answered proudly. We ordered them several months ago when Sarah found out what was going to happen. I figured that I could protect my family and handle a lot of bad situations one-on-one, or even one-on-4 with my pistols, but I'd rather not have to get close up if I can handle it from a distance. But I'm not that good with a rifle. Well, we'll have to see how this all plays out this winter, Cassie mused, but I'd be glad to have you set them up, sight them in as soon as it's safe to leave the Butterfield farm for a week. I can work with that. Sarah smiled with a devilish smile. What? Kathy asked, spotting Sarah's smile. If you can't come to us, then we'll just come to you. I'm not sure how bad the winters usually are up here, but I got a feeling that this year is going to be a lot worse than normal. You may not even be able to get to us with that green beast or Walt's Humvee. You could be right. Sarah smiled even bigger. Then I'll just have to borrow Walt's Ranger 2 or his dad's SAR. What's a Ranger 2 and a SAR? That is a SAR, Sarah said, pointing behind him. Survival Adventure Rescue Vehicle. And behind it is the Ranger 2. Coming up the street was Mark. Mark was driving the SAR, and behind him, Michael was driving the Ranger 2 with Mary driving the Deuce and a Half with the horse trailer behind it. By the way, this is a different Mary. There's two Marys. There's Mary, who's married to Mark, and that's Walt's mom and dad, and there's Mary, who is one of the twins. Your family sure doesn't do things halfway, Sheriff, Joseph said. We have been blessed in adversity, Walt said, thinking of all the things that have come to his family after his Uncle Dan died. Sometimes I wish we had a little less adversity, though. Don't we all? Mark brought the SAR to a halt, even with the front of Mark's Humvee, and rolled down the window. Excuse me. Hey, son, we've been trying to raise you for the past half hour. Walt reached for his cell phone to see what was wrong with it. Don't bother, the phone system is dead. David's been trying to call you on the ham radio. Oh, man, Walt shook his head in self-disgust. I turned it off to save the battery last night and forgot to turn it on. I figured as much, Mark smiled broadly. Anyway, we were able to get hold of the Aherns, and they're getting get hold of the Aherns, and they are getting ready. Hang on, that's they are getting everything. They are already getting. Okay. I misread the first. I read already is just ready, and they are already getting everything that they can. Move that over there. They are already getting everything ready that they can move out to the ranch. They said you took Sarah, Mick, and Danny with you, so I figured I'd bring in a little extra help. He nodded back to the others in the various vehicles. Extra help. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. Ignore. And capitalize that. There we go. He nodded back at the others in the various vehicles. So we get everything out before the weather or ash turns bad. Nope, hang on. I just got a text. See what's going on here. It's cut and it's on the freezer. Okay. All right. Where was I? Oh, the NOAA website is still operational. It looks like a big storm front is forming off the coast. I hope you're quick enough, Walt said with concern, heavy in his voice as he glanced at the western skies. Sarah, Danny, Mick, you need to go home and help pack everything you can. You don't have time to waste. The three of them nodded and said goodbye to Jane, Mary, and Jake and ran to Danny's truck. Walt turned to the Donaldson. You need to hurry up and get those supplies while you can get home before the roads get too bad to be able to travel safely. Joseph held up the notebook pages. Thank you for the legwork on where to go to get these supplies. I need to keep good people safe and be able to help others, Walt said flatly. Understood. Joseph replied and turned and walked back to his GMC truck. Follow me. The first place is 3 blocks over, and there's a bunch of debris blocking one of the streets I noticed last night. Kathy said as she straddled her Harley and started it. As the Donaldsons drove away, Walt said to himself, if they can bring at least 10 families together to keep watch on the southern end of the county, then we may have a chance of holding the southern county against the South County line against what's coming. Kurt and Candace Smythe had weathered the earthquakes rather well. When they bought the property, the Walt had shown them the first thing they did was to sell logging rights to the trees they wanted cleared for a runway. A quick cut provision to get them out as fast as possible. That way they could have the stumps removed and a runway graded, rocked, rocked and oiled. The second thing was to build an underground bunker out of 8 40-foot high cube cargo containers. They poured a 36 40 by 84-foot concrete slab that was 4 inches for a base. Then they set the 8 containers on it. They welded the containers at the corners to make sure the containers didn't move when they poured soil cement around the sides. The soil cement was made by using a portable pug mill and mixing Portland cement powder with the dirt they dug out to make the pit for the bunker. The amount of Portland cement they used was called a 4-sack mix, which meant that it was the equivalent to the amount of cement used was 4 90-pound bags of pure Portland cement for 1 yard of dirt. Most driveways and sidewalks use a 5-sack mix, and house foundations were a 6-sack mix. The 4-sack mix Smiths used encapsulated the cargo containers in a rock-hard cocoon that made it a great base for the next phase of their plan. This was topped off of concrete, which was coated with tar to make it waterproof. Then 2 feet of clean rock for drainage of groundwater. Then on top of that, they poured another 6-inch slab of concrete. That on top of that was a 160 feet by 80 feet aircraft hangar with a secret entrance from one of the supply rooms down into the bunker below. Doorways had been cut to allow access from one container to the next. All in all, it was a very nice 2,500 square foot bunker. For power, they had installed 2 auto-rotating solar panel stands that could produce 1,200 watts of powers each, and a 1,500 watt wind generator. These fed a 10,000 watt battery bank, 10,000 watt bank of batteries that could power the bunker for 2 days of normal use should the power feed get cut for some reason. In addition, they had a 4-foot diameter polypropylene drain pipe from the basement of the house to the bunker just in case they had to evacuate to the bunker because it was unsafe to stay in the house. It was over 1,000 feet from the house to the bunker, which made using a tunnel a little difficult, being only 4 feet tall, meant they had to squat walk the entire way, which was very hard on the legs. It was also a shooting gallery if someone found the entrance and shot them as they were trying to escape the bunker, so they put 3 offset jogs in the pipe to break up the line of sight shooting problem. Down the bunker, they didn't hear the down in the bunker. They didn't hear the noise from the Cascadia subduction zone eruption nor the Yellowstone eruption, but they did feel the earthquakes. They were able to keep Jenna, Michael, and the others at Walt's Ranch apprised of their condition via emails until the internet dish was covered with too much ash to work. Then they used the ham radio until Mark suggested they go topside and clean off the dish. Having done so, Kurt turned one of the closed-circuit TV cameras so that it was aimed at the dish. He figured he wouldn't have to wait until they lost internet to come out and clean the dish off. Other than the occasional cleaning of the dish, they figured they could hunker down for several months of fall and winter until the spring thaw, if needed. Okay. Then they would come out and check on their little ranchette. The original house was boarded up with eviction notices, and chemical warning notices were stapled to the boards covering the doors and windows. Anyone who came across the house would think the owners had been evicted by the county health department because of a dangerous chemical contamination, that the property was uninhabitable until the chemicals could be removed by a hazmat team. They were positive that no one would try to break into the house. They also had put notices on the doors of the hangar to discourage anyone from trying to get in it. All the property was no longer inviting to anyone who might happen by. Next section here. Chris and his contingent of DHS staff were driving north on Highway 95 coming up on Alpine when they came upon several vehicles blocking the highway with their hoods up. People, let's hold back here. This could be more than it looks, he cautioned as they stopped the convoy of federal employees they were escorting to the warehouse and modular trailers where they would be staying. Agent Sal Peters pulled the Humvee over to the shoulder of the road, allowing Connie Simpson to pull the Humvee with its mini-me Gatling gun mounted on the cupola around to the front of the convoy. Connie, hold there, Sal. Sal and I will walk up to them while you and Leon cover the rest of us. Roger that, Connie acknowledged. Sal walked up cautiously towards the jam of vehicles with their hoods up. As they got closer, they noticed that 2 of the vehicles were minivans, and one was a Bentley Bentayga hybrid SUV crossover, and the last two were Suburbans pulling trailers. The people standing around the vehicles were arguing about what was wrong with their vehicles, while the eyes of several children stared at them through the windows of the vehicles. Folks, Chris said loudly enough to be heard over the arguing, what seems to be the problem? What does it look like the problem is? One of the men snapped at Chris from under the hood of the Suburbans. Our engine won't run, dipshit. Jerry, you better check your attitude and apologize to the man. One of the one of the women who was standing next to the Suburban he was working on said quickly under his breath to him, "Why?" Jerry barked as he pulled his head out from under the hood, stepped around from the front of the Suburban and froze in his track when he saw Chris and Sal in their DHS BDUs with their mini 14 bullpups slung across their chests. "Have you checked the air filters?" Chris asked, trying to suppress the smile that was attempting to break through the deadpan expression on his face. "Driving through all this ash has mostly plugged them up, and that would starve your engines for air." "What?" one of the other men said. "Damn, I should have thought of that." All of the drivers dove under their hoods of their vehicles, went to work pulling the filters. "Be careful not to spill any of the ash into the intake chamber. That'd be very bad for your engine." It would be very bad for the engines. Hang on here, put an S on that. Those that were quickly working on pulling the air filter suddenly slowed down and rethought what they were doing. Then most of them asked for help from those in their vehicles in pulling the air filters, covers, wires, and everything out of the way so they could get the clogged air filters out without spilling ash back into the filter housing. After about 10 minutes and a bit of cussing on the part of a few of the drivers, all the vehicles were able to start and run somewhat normally. "Do you mind telling me where you're heading to?" "To my late brother's ranch up by Council," the woman said, who was about to get into Berkeley Ventagna. "Why?" "Oh, we're heading to Council too," Chris said with a non-emotional face. "You may want to check with the sheriff when you get to town. They're trying to keep count of people to be able to allocate supplies when the time comes." "Oh, it's that bad up here?" The woman looked a little startled. "Oh, it's that bad up here?" "No, but we're trying to keep it from getting that way." "I guess we better check with Sheriff Cooper then." "Sheriff Cooper retired last year. Walt Rogers is the sheriff now." "What?" she exclaimed. "He inherits the ranch and now he's the sheriff? Why, that wheezy little brat." She stopped when she saw Chris and Sal trying to suppress their laughter. "What? You must be Elizabeth Ward, Walt's aunt from Beverly Hills." "Yes, how'd you know that?" "We've been working with Walt for the past couple of years." Chris paused as he thought for a moment. "Just a couple months after Dan's funeral, in fact." "Oh, yeah, he caught some bank robbers and saved a bunch of people and did a bunch of other hero type stuff that you'll hear about at the ranch." Then, as if an afterthought, "Oh, and you may want to try and not piss off his fiancée. She's a better shot than Walt is and has a much shorter fuse and doesn't take gruff off of anybody. So don't call Walt a weasel again if there's a chance it'll get back to her," Chris says as he turned to walk back to his Humvee and rubbed his shoulder and worked his arm as if it was stiff from an old injury. Sal waited a second before turning himself. Then he heard Chris. He had heard Chris and Walt talking about Walt's family during the reading of the will. Knew about Elizabeth's attitude. "Excuse me," Walt said. Elizabeth said to Sal. "There seems to be a subtle message that he was trying to convey, but I'm not sure what it is." Sal smiled. She double tapped the boss in the shoulder when he made a bad joke about her and Walt. "Hell." Sal pulled up his sleeve to expose a scar from a bullet wound that he received in laughing at it. Elizabeth's eyes started to bug out in shock. "Didn't someone arrest her?" "Oh, hell no. There ain't nobody stupid enough or crazy enough to try to arrest her, let alone press charges against her. She's a one-shot kill three kills type of shooter. And Walt said if we were stupid enough to piss her off, then we deserve what we got." Sal then advised him to drive slowly and not to kick up ash, and to pull over an Alpine and see if they get help doing a better job of cleaning their air filters before they finish driving into the Council and out to Walt's ranch. Chris had the convoy wait for 2 minutes after the group left before starting out again. He took that time to call Walt on a satellite phone and give him a heads up that his aunt was coming with a group of people and what he and Sal had told them. Then the convoy slowly continued to make their way north towards Council and the DHS warehouse and living quarters. As they passed Alpine, they saw that the vehicles they were behind in the parking, the vehicles that they were saw that the vehicles that need to put a word in there, that they were behind in the parking lot of the little store there. Elizabeth and the others gave the caravan of Humvees, army trucks, and other sort of government and private vehicles the once over as they drove by them. Walt had finished his survey of the town and was checking in with his dad to see how the moving at the Ahern's was coming along. We're just about back to the ranch, Mark said. We'll have them unpacked and in the modular in a couple of hours at the most. He chuckled. Sarah is chomping at the bit to get back to town with you. I'm glad you're almost back to the ranch. Walt took a breath before continuing. How does she plan on getting back to town? Danny and Mick are going back and going back to get the trailer-mounted propane tank we couldn't tow this trip. They're going to give her a ride as soon as they get unloaded. They get unloaded, and she will get her her Suburban at the same time. There we go. All righty. All right. I got to take care of something. I'll be right back. So I'm going to throw up a message here. Where is it? There we go. Don't go away. I'll be right back. All right. And I'm back. Get a Suburban at the same time. All righty here. Walt smiled at the fact that Sarah had figured out a way to get back to him so quickly. Tell them I'll be at the main DHS warehouse. Agent Davies and the group he is escorting Agent Davies and the group he is escorting pulled into the warehouse about an hour ago and are getting settled in. They brought several more travel trailers and Class A RVs with them. Things are getting ugly in Boise, and they are pulling more DHS staff out and moving them up here. He may be heading back down to escort another group. He may be heading back down tomorrow to escort another group. That doesn't sound good, Mark said. How do you think that's going to affect the flow of evacuees? I'm not sure. We'll start getting some before Halloween. But we will definitely see some groups before Thanksgiving, right up to when the snows close the roads. What about the ash? That may stop the flow of vehicles. That may stop the flow of the vehicles breakdown just north of Boise. If they don't, they won't be able to walk this far. That's one of the things that's bothering Agent Davies about going back to Boise. I wouldn't want to go back there without some snowplows to help clear the road. Me neither, Walt said. And a couple MRAPs too, or a military bulldozer, Mark sighed. Too bad they all couldn't pull out with him this morning. I agree, but I don't think, but we didn't think it would get this bad so quickly. Chris said that they were planning on hunkering down at the federal building, but when people started showing up with guns looking for handouts and supplies, they realized that was a bad idea. Does he have an idea what does he have an idea if they're going does he have an idea what they're going to do if he can't get to Boise to escort him out? I'm not sure. They're still kicking ideas around. Whatever they decide, I have a feeling it's going to be as tough on Chris as those left behind. No doubt, Mark acknowledged, and then knowingly added, I've seen how making it tough decisions affect you, and it's not just you, but Sarah too. Walt sighed with guilt. I know I've put her through a lot with all this, but I didn't know if I could, but I don't know if I could have held up without her. I don't know any man that could without a strong woman beside him. Remind me to thank Mom for all she did for us. Amen to that. Oh, by the way, Chris ran into Lizzie south of Alpine. She was traveling with a group about 20 or so. They got 5 ash plug in their air filter. That's just great, Mark said with exasperation. We don't know who she's bringing with her or what their intentions are. I know. But Chris and Sal put the fear of Sarah and the fear of messing with the family into them. How they do that? Well, all right, next section here. Mr. President, I have a report to you on the moon, the young female analyst said as she walked up to the conference room table where the president and several other military and civilian department heads were deep in discussion about unfolding events concerning the asteroid's passing. Give us the brief version, Cynthia. She hesitated, then spoke in a shaky voice. The moon has been pulled closer to the Earth as expected, but they still cannot determine the exact new orbit, what the new orbit will be. We're pretty sure that it'll settle down into a defined orbit in orbit between 38 to 45,000 miles closer than it had before. It'll take anywhere from 6 months to 3 years to get set into the new orbit. This, of course, will cause an increase in average tidal height of about 5 to 10 feet worldwide. The numbers are changing as more data comes in. But we hang on here. But we really don't have any better numbers than yesterday. The president asked. Actually, do. The numbers are falling in line with Professor Johansson's adjusted theory. Well, at least something is going right today. I don't like the time zone here. Let me think here. Yeah, okay, let me change this. It was EAR, early evening, and Walt stood with Zach Davies and 4 DHS agents talking with Elizabeth Ward and several of the men in her group. I'm sorry, Aunt Lizzie, but all the home's modulars are occupied. If you let Dad know that you wanted one, we could have bought another one for you. He emphasized he was talking about just her and no one else. What about at the village you guys set up? One of the men with Elizabeth spoke up. Walt shot him a stare that told him he'd violated protocol by interrupting. That facility is leased by the Redoubt LLC, and the association's rules are what you have to buy. And the association rules are that you have to have a buy-in and have at least 5 years worth of food when you arrive. No, they won't let you near the place. One of the other men held up an index finger for permission to speak. When Walt nodded to him, the man spoke softly. Is there any place you would recommend that we could stay for a couple nights until we can work out something more permanent? The Quail Hollow might be able to put you up for a day or two, but they're taking silver or gold or silver coin only. Well, that's a start, the man said. Well, Elizabeth pronounced loudly, I can't believe you won't make room for me at my own brother's ranch that you'd. She was cut off by the sound. S-O-U, sound of an ugly green forestry truck pulling into the parking lot at a faster than normal speed and heading straight towards him. The truck turned about 20 feet away and stopped. However, before it came to stop, the front passenger door opened and a cowboy and an off-white duster and hat stepped out, pulling off a Bruce Willis move from Red. The figure strolled towards the group defiantly, the duster swinging open to expose holstered she wore. Oh, shit, Chris exclaimed as he slapped Walt on the shoulder. You're on your own, buddy. Your fiance looks really pissed, and we're out of here. Zach Davies and his agent scattered like sheep before an alpha wolf, leaving the others looking for some place to hide. Zach Davies, she called out. Chris pulled up short, making it as if it was the last thing he wanted to do. Yes, Sarah, he said, not turning around. You are going to run a full background check on all of them, right? She stated as she continued walking towards Walt and his aunt's group. Yes, Sarah, it's in the works now. Good. Then as an afterthought, sorry about the shoulder. I shouldn't have said what I said, and he jogged off to the office trailer and went inside. Elizabeth's eyes bugged out a bit. Sarah stopped when she got next to Walt. Your dad and I talked to the LLC leaders. They said that if everyone in the group passes a background check, that'll cost them $275,000 in gold or silver coins or bars for each of the concrete RV spaces they need. And they must have 6 instead of 5 years worth of food for each member because they aren't ready to do gardening in the spring, and they will be a year behind everybody else. They wanted 350,000. Hang on, I can shorten that up there because I had it broken because at one point that was a page break, but I'm just going to let it run over there. They wanted 350,000, but dropped the price when Mark explained that she's your aunt, she's your only aunt. They also gave the option of using the fourth turnaround for 150,000 a space and 25,000 per cargo container if they can if any can be located. Those spaces are just gravel, no covers, no containers. Granted, they got sewer, water, and electric, but still, Walt letting it hang. That's why they're going for so cheap, Sarah replied, taking a deep breath, then got an evil glint in her eye. The other provision was if any in their group can't or won't abide by the LLC laws, including work details and schedules, then they'll ask me to enforce the removal of those that need to be removed with extreme prejudices. What? Elizabeth shouted. You can't. Her tirade was cut off by the sudden appearance of a cocked ball and cap revolver pointed up under her nose. Shocked gasps came from all in Elizabeth's group. Sarah continued talking, looking at Walt, not even looking at Walt. I'm not even looking at Elizabeth. Mark played it up like you really liked the Beverly Hills bitch. Hang on, I want to emphasize that. That was very kind and generous of him and them. Elizabeth standard, her eyes wide open in shock, not really sure she heard Sarah say what she said. I thought so, Sarah said with a deadpan face, and the revolver disappeared. Walt struggled to keep his face as passionate as he could as he listened to Sarah and nodded. He knew his father did not agree with any of what Elizabeth espoused. Heck, even his grandparents had a strained relationship with their daughter over her positions about just about everything. Excuse me, the polite man in the group spoke. Where could we buy 6 years worth of food? Nobody's selling anything for cash or credit cards. Only for gold or silver coins, bars, or ingots. Only for gold or silver coins, bars, or ingots will some people sell some supplies, but not to outsiders. I might be able to scrounge up what you need in a couple days, Sarah said. Exactly how many do you have in your group? 25, including children. He then reached inside his shirt and pulled out a leather pouch about 6 inches to start. Please let me know how much you need. That I will, Sarah said, but I can tell you this. This might get you 6 months worth unless you're going to go on a carnivore diet. Most people are not going to sell their own food. What? Several people asked in surprise. I will talk directly to some of the farmers. I might be able to get several pigs and a steer or two along with some bulk potatoes, onions, and cabbages. I can see if I can finagle some canning jars and lids and a couple water bath canners and a pressure or two from the co-op. So you'll be able to can the potatoes and cabbages and meat, so it'll last you 6 years. Your meals this winter and spring are going to be very boring until you can grow your own vegetables. We appreciate that, the polite man said. Oh, I don't think you have a clear picture what is really involved here, Sarah said sternly. You're buying into a community that was set up over 6 months ago. There are specific rules on behavior responsibilities. You will grow your own food in your garden. You will raise your own meat. You will harvest what you grow. You will butcher what you raise. Your garden fails, you go hungry. Your livestock dies, you go hungry. That seems kind of harsh, Elizabeth said. I'm not done, Sarah hissed. There are communal chores that everyone has to do. You fail to do those, and I will remove you. If you fail to do your chores, I will remove you from the property. And most of those in the village were richer than any of you. So get over yourselves. Chris came running out of the modular office he'd gone into. Walt, he came running out. He shouted as he came running out. Hang on. All right. I don't recognize that phone number, so hang on. I got to check. I had to check to see if that number was from the school. That's not any of the numbers listed at the school. So, all right. So get over yourselves. Walt turned towards him. What? The returning Pacific Ocean water has washed over Baja California and up into the up the Gulf of California into Arizona and all the way to Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa metro area. Casualties are expected to be 4 to 5 million at least. With at least with all the California refugees. What about the rescue effort in Yuma? Walt asked. Anyone in the area was washed away. It was totally devastated from the ham radio reports. They're sending observation aircraft to photograph the area before they send in more people. Walt closed his eyes and sighed. Stupid politicians. Yeah, Chris agreed. Okay, there we go. That took care of chapter 10. Tomorrow we'll do chapter 11, which is the last chapter of the book, and then the epilogue, which is a preview of book 2, Running Against the Wind. All right. Thank you all for coming in. And I hope you enjoyed it. And when I get it, hopefully by the sometime near the beginning to middle of summer, I will be able to have some of these books available on Amazon for Kindle. And I got to talk with Tammy McNeil about who her publicist is, and see about getting paperback and hard copy versions printed as well. All right. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow morning for chapter 11. Take care, everyone.